Booker Creek is at the heart of the center of St. Petersburg. When the Orange Belt Railroad was first built, it stopped at Booker Creek, obviously at the fall, because that's where a locomotive would pick up steam. First African American communities working the railroad settled right below and along the creek. So the creek is at the heart of the city of St. Petersburg. A creek like Salt Creek, which runs diagonally across the city grid, really finds itself at the margins, at the edges, outside the official story of St. Petersburg. So when we travel up these creeks, we at once travel into the heart of our city's history, but also we're really exploring the edges and the margins. And you know, from the margins is really where the good stories always are.
The idea that springs represent more than just a source of drinking water, that's a story that's told in a lot of cultures, right? Springs become this kind of symbol for ever-abundant, renewing life. And I would say that is doubly true for Florida because we are so gifted with so many beautiful freshwater springs.
No one knows what stories the next 50 to 100 years hold for certain. One thing we know is that sea levels are going to rise. We're not entirely sure how much, but these creeks are going to become an increasingly important part of our story. As much as we've tried to bury them over the past 50 or 100 years, the creeks themselves are going to find us. So we think we ought to start looking for where these waters run.
So just as we were thinking earlier about all of the good stories kind of coming from the margins, I think there's a lot to say about the stories that come from these springs, which in many cases are still there. They're still going somewhere, but their place on the map has really changed. And what I want to do is find some of those stories, tell some of those stories, and then maybe think through what would it mean if we really valued our water, right? If we understood it as something more than just what's readily available when we turn on the tap, but thought about where it comes from, thought about the role that it plays in supporting the life that we have here. That's why I want to write about urban springs for the Creekshed Project.